My base case is Bitcoin's going to grow 29% a year for the next 21 years. And that's going to cause it to appreciate to $13 million Bitcoin.
So today we're going to be explaining why Michael Saylors' base case for Bitcoin is wrong, and why I think the real purchasing power for Bitcoin by 2031 will be $66,233,778. So everybody knows about Michael Saylors' bear case, base case, and bull case in his 21-year forecast for Bitcoin, but absolutely nobody understands the column that I've got blurred out on this Excel spreadsheet. Again, I've been in Bitcoin for 9 years, and no one can seem to wrap their head around this concept of compound interest. And that is because compound interest, it's a very complicated subject. There's a reason why Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. But before we get into that, let's start breaking down some numbers. So again, I truly believe $66 million Bitcoin by 2031 is going to happen. And that is because of this blurred column that we're going to reveal towards the end of today's video. Let's first start having a look at Michael's bear case for Bitcoin. So Michael Saylors' bear case for Bitcoin by the year of 2045, it's $3 million. And I know what some people might be thinking, Luke, you're crazy. $3 million, a bear case? That's right, Michael Saylor is pretty bullish on Bitcoin. We are gonna run the maths for why I do think that's conservative, but there will be some people who might be new to Bitcoin thinking, hang on a minute, that's very bullish. That is what, a 30x from here? Don't get me wrong, we're going to explain the logic behind why Michael Saylor, again, billionaire with a $10 billion net worth, believes $3 million Bitcoin by 2045 is bearish, but how he got there is by using a CAGR of 22%. So a CAGR, that stands for compounded annual growth rate. Now, Michael is simply assuming that Bitcoin is going to grow by 22% every year for 21 years. And we can see by the Excel spreadsheet, I used ChatGPT to strip all of the data out of Michael's predictions and Michael's forecast for the year 2045. And we can see that by the year 2045, if Bitcoin grows by about 22% per year, it's going to be a little bit over $3 million a coin. This is where Michael gets his bear case for Bitcoin. Now, his base case assumes a slightly higher CAGR. He assumes that Bitcoin is going to be appreciating by 29% per year. Again, that is incredibly conservative. That is more than 6 times less than the number we're going to be looking at in that blurred column. Again, Bitcoin, since inception, it's been compounding by well over 100% every single year. But we're going to get to that one. Let's first have a look at the base case. So if Bitcoin compounds by 29% every single year, we can see by around the year 2045, Bitcoin's going to be worth over $11 million per coin. And again, I just want you guys to remember, this guy is the CEO of a publicly traded company. He's going out there and saying, look, my base case for Bitcoin, it's $11 million a coin, it's $13 million a coin. This is where it's going. He's saying that with a lot of confidence. I do think that as a CEO of a publicly traded company, you kind of have to be slightly conservative with what you believe. And there have been interviews where Michael has kind of maybe said the quiet parts out loud of what he actually believes the price of Bitcoin will be in the future.
It's going up forever, Laura. And the guys in California say, well, I can't just tax all the Bitcoin in California. It'll move to Wyoming. It'll move to Singapore. It'll move to Malta. And at the end of the day, you can tell everybody to go themselves. You can put it in your head, memorize the freaking key, right? And it's here. And then, you know, the classic Bitcoiner response is, oh, yeah, my Bitcoin, I lost it in a boating accident. You ever heard that phrase? It's kind of a trope, but what it means is, at the end of the day, if you push me too far, I lost it, it's gone, sorry.
That's it. You're right.
Tax that.
So Michael might be a lot more conservative with what he says in the public sphere today in 2025. But just 5 years ago, he certainly did say the quiet parts out loud about what you can do and tell the government if you hold your own keys, or even better, memorize your own Bitcoin backup keys. Again, just a reminder, if you don't have a self-custody wallet, make sure you do one so you can tell your government to tax that. Again, if you are looking for a hardware wallet, you can get your hands on a Ledger, and they're going to give you $10 of free Bitcoin if you buy any one of the really cool hardware wallets that they've got on their shop. They've got 4, they've got some touch screens, so I highly recommend you check them out. And if you are looking for a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet, Trezor will also give you 5% off if you buy a hardware wallet from the link down below. So again, put your Bitcoin into your own custody so you can tell the government tax that in Michael's high-pitched voice. But let's talk a little bit more about Michael's conservative numbers, because even these are incredibly bullish when we look at his bull case for Bitcoin that assumes a 36% CAGR. Look at how Bitcoin grows from $7 million a coin in 2040 all the way up to over $30 million a coin only 5 years later, when we're assuming that Bitcoin will grow by 36% per year. And again, it's worth noting, 36% per year, that's not outlandish, that's not bullish, that's very conservative for even traditional assets. The S&P 500, for example, it only compounds between 7 to 10% per year. And when you factor in the growth of the money supply, the S&P 500, the biggest stock market in the entire world, it's only keeping pace with the expansion of the money supply. Because if you look at this chart right here, we can see the global money supply, coincidentally, has been expanding by about 7% per year, every year, since the year 1970. Again, same thing with the housing market. This globally has been expanding by about 6% per year, every year. Do you guys see a little bit of a correlation between those three numbers? 6%, 7%, and 7%. It's nearly as if all of the stock market investing gurus and the real estate gurus, they're not actually making money. Their assets are just keeping pace with the expansion of the money supply. But that's a topic for another day. What is the expansion of Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin's CAGR? Well, I had to consult ChatGPT. I had to even fact check ChatGPT. But what I found was, since inception, Bitcoin's CAGR is actually about 195% per year. Again, some people will dispute this. Some people will say, oh, but you should start in 2009. You shouldn't start from zero. I don't care. For today's purposes, the numbers I'm running, we're going to use 195% per year. And the assumption that I've made to get to a $66 million Bitcoin price tag by the year of 2031. It's not just wild speculations. All I've done in the numbers we're about to show you guys in this column that's still blurred, we're just assuming that Bitcoin's going to do what it's done for its first 16 years in its next 6 years. That's it. Nothing more, nothing fancy. We're gonna have a look here. We can see when we run these numbers and these assumptions, you can see by 2026, Bitcoin will be worth $295,000 a coin if it increases by 190% per year for 2025. Again, doesn't sound crazy. Kind of sounds in line with what many analysts are saying. How about the next year? We can see then it moves on to $871,000 a coin in 2027. All right, we're getting a little bit bullish here. But let's jump forward to the year 2031. If Bitcoin just does what it's done in the past, it would be worth $66,233,778 per coin in only 6 years' time. Now, I know that's incredibly crazy, but this is just assuming what's happened previously repeats itself again in the future, which is why I strongly believe that one Bitcoin, it is incredibly valuable to own. Even buying fractions of a Bitcoin, I think will have generational wealth in the future. But then a lot of people say, Luke, one Bitcoin, that's worth $110,000. I cannot afford a full Bitcoin. Can I actually get rich with Bitcoin? Can I survive the retirement crisis that is plaguing every single one of the 8 billion people on the planet today? And I'm going to say, yes, you can. You can retire with much less than one Bitcoin. And if you are curious in knowing exactly how much Bitcoin you need to retire and become rich on a Bitcoin standard, I filmed a couple of deep dives on this topic recently. I'm going to put links to both of those videos somewhere around there. And with all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think is the fair purchasing power of Bitcoin in 2031? I want to hear from you guys. And with all that said, I'll see you on the next one.